anywhere you are, from Kartong to Koina, with less hassle. Yes! You can receive monies from your family and friends in UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world with our safe, secure, fast, and convenient service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia. Supersonics Money Transfer. We are currently in 34 African countries and counting, giving you quality money remittance services that are second to none. Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics.
Written. But there you go to the UK and you sit with other people from other civilizations like Chinese who cannot even pronounce a simple English word. Okay? But yet, they will look at us and say they will not lower their standards when they have been here for over 50 years. Well, yeah, Jame will say 400 years. And then they left an education system with us. But that education system was to advance the colonial project. And when they left, they dropped it, and we're still proud of that education system. It continues up to this day. He talks about corruption in the school system, whether there is a subject that teaches students about ethics and morality. Just to inform this gathering also, that currently we have what we call civic education as a subject. I think it is introduced already. The other time we went to the WIAC to validate that and all that. And part of the civic education as a subject is also ethics and morality. But that is the bedrock, that is the foundation to address corruption. When we say, how do we fight corruption in this country, some will say, because normally when I pose this question in my class, my students will say, it is about putting in place the laws. There are good laws in this country, right? But have they benefited us? No. It is not only about laws, but it's also preparing the mindset. That is why I get back to the point. I said, in 1965, what have our forefathers done in defining, making the Gambian understand the concept of independence? Not merely ceremonial, that we have a prime minister who will come and deliver a speech and we have cultural groups there, fanfare all over the Gambia has become independent. No, it moves beyond that. How do we prepare the mindset? And I agree with MADI that sadly, the educated people are the most dishonest people in this country. Today, or 2 days ago, there was a report released by the National Audit Office about rampant corruption in this country. Yeah, Jammeh's time, corruption was centralized in the Gambia. Jammeh taking, but now it is decentralized on the Barrow. That everybody, including Barrow, will take. We are talking about a country, $669 million were withdrawn without approval, and everybody goes to sleep peacefully. That nobody even cares. Those who question these things on social media are insulted. And everybody goes to sleep peace, and we think that we are an independent country. We still think that the Gambia is a sovereign country. When poverty is rampant, corruption is entrenched in society and seen as a norm. In fact, corrupt people are celebrated instead of being questioned, instead of being held to account by us, the citizens. He said something. You have a president who will appoint a speaker, and the speaker, I'm not turning this into a political discussion, but we have to speak the fact because it's about the Gambia. Okay, fine. We can't do so. Not necessarily partisan politics. Let me withdraw that because politics is part of our life. It's an everyday thing. But you have a president who will appoint a speaker, and 1 week later the speaker will come and say, in fact, I still hold the view that your election 5-6 years ago was rigged. And then it's still maintained there. We have a country where the security of our presidency is in the hands of foreign forces. When I, as ESSA and NJIE, a sovereign Gambian, MADI said we are all sovereign, but I question my sovereignty because I cannot access my state house without a foreign national coming to check whether I should go in or not. Not only that, electricity. We rely on Senegal. We talk about internet. Senelec, their connection was down 3, 4 hours, 5 hours in the Gambia. There was internet blackout. People could not communicate. We have a healthcare system that is just rotten and dilapidated. Our roads today, if you want to commit suicide, go and drive on our roads. Yes, the past days, how many accidents have happened? It seems like more people die from accidents. And these are educated people that are in charge of all these sectors. We're talking about agriculture being backward in the Gambia since independence. Go to the agricultural sector today. It has the highest number of PhD and master's holders, but it's the most backward and most affected sector in this country. So that concept, that notion of independence, that is why I said it starts from our forefathers, but that is not an excuse. It's just like people who still question colonialism to say it's responsible for our underdevelopment, like what Walter Rodney will say in his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. That is a dependency theory. But now we are shifting from that. It's no more about dependency theory. We are thinking of the interdependency. How do we also benefit from these people? Not merely them coming and taking from us without us also taking from them. So we must, first and foremost, from this day, start conceptualizing the notion of independence and how does it build a better future for the generations unborn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think what we are seeing here is passion and factual information that touch on our life. And the bigger question is, what do we do with all these problems? We know they exist. And part of the missing point, in my own opinion, and I'm throwing it to you again, Dr. CEESAY, part of the missing point is on the issue of education and informing the Gambian mind. And it translates to our political culture. All the activities we have in our political culture is shaped by the minds of the people, the Gambian. If Gambian believe that politics is about drumming, it's about dancing, it's about giving t-shirt, it's about giving people money and so forth. If the Gambian believe that that's their mind, it translates to their political culture.
Politics of benefit. Politics of benefit.
Oh, politics of benefit. How does our political culture still how do you relate our political culture with the idea of independence?
Well, that's a very difficult one. First of all, before I just answer that question, I, to a large extent, agree with the previous speakers that we should not be where we are today, considering the level of people who we think are educated and are manning critical positions in this country. However, I'd like to draw a line and make there's a difference between being schooled and being educated. One of the biggest problems we have in this country is that we have a lot of people who are schooled but not educated. And the man or the woman who is schooled and thinks that he or she is educated is the most dangerous person for his country. Because if Mr. NJIE here undergoes civil aviation training to be able to be a pilot, and does his 1 year, 18 months training course, he's gone through it, he's got his certificates, but he can still properly pilot a plane, and they give him a plane with passengers, he'll kill them in the Atlantic Ocean. So we need to make that difference. And for me, I feel sad when we think that the education is supposed to be the solution to the problems. But now it seems like in the Gambia here, we are saying that education is the problem itself, rather than being a solution. And I think it's important that we make that difference, that being schooled, you can have your PhD degree. That doesn't make you educated. You can be someone who's never been to school before, but you are more educated than the person who's had a PhD degree. So I think it's time to explore and interrogate those things and then move forward and find a solution to that. Now, when it comes to political culture, what can we do about that? And I'm happy that ESSA has just revealed that civic education is embedded or integrated in the education sector. We have first-hand experience in that, and I will share my experiences. You go to a particular village as a politician, you park your car, young people will approach you, 15, 20 young people. Now, I think if I was a young man living in a village or anywhere in the Gambia, and a politician comes and wants my vote, and then get that politician, what do you have for me as a young person? How do you change my life? What are your policies? But the moment they rush you is t-shirt all day. And one day I had this issue with some young people in a... Exactly. One day I had it with young people in NYANG, and we said, young people, speak for the young people. He didn't tell us, what are you going to do to ensure that our women in the gardens, life becomes good for them? What jobs? No, he said, "Ntolafta vesola, aning kato, aning mung, aning." And the man is married with kids. And I said, if we think like this, the country will not move. So I mean, how do we change this? To be honest, we have to go back to basics. And I think for me, I don't have the answers to that. It's a perennial problem. It takes a generation to change that. And that is why I say we have to catch them young. Let us, you see, for us, to most of this generation, we are lost generation. We are gone. We cannot change certain people. It's not possible to change them. We have to go and catch those young ones who are not born yet. It is now time for us to sit and get a new development planning, a new vision for those young people. What kind of education system do you want them to go through? And get it ready for them so when they go through it. But for this generation here, us, our generation, forget about us. We are gone. Let us now go and capture those young ones and make sure they don't think like us.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Say, yeah, I think we have to critique that, interrogate it. So you formed a party, you know, and kudos to Doi, really, that when they set up their party, they focus a lot on civic education, which they still do. And really, it's about empowerment. I think what is highlighted with that young man in that place, they need vest and football. How empowered is he? At the end of the day, politically, how empowered? I mean, it's not just his fault, but even you go to University of the Gambia, which is a 100% literate community, the empowerment is it there? I mean, how well are these university students securing their best welfare? You know, how well are they organized? All right, how well are they organized to ensure that they have quality education? It comes down to empowerment, enlightenment of empowerment and organization. So when people are not enlightened, they are not empowered. And if they are not empowered, they can be organized. And I think that's why I said kudos to Dai for establishing a party with a purpose. That look, at the end of the day, we come from a background in which our people are so disempowered because they are so politically ignorant. They are so disorganized. And we have to organize them. But if we say we abandon this generation, catch them young, those in nursery school right now, in primary school, you're talking about a 50-year period when those people will come of age, more or less. At least a generation, 20 years, 25 years. So I wonder whether you will be able to change that. I think right now,
and this generation, I suppose, is in charge of the operating.
Yeah.
So if we are that's where we are, and we most likely
you will dismantle this country. So even the younger ones that we want them to take over, they'll find nothing here. So I think, like I said, your question is a difficult one in one sense, but also it's a simple one. That we have all recognized education, and we're talking about value-based education. How do we create a value-based education so that we produce policymakers, lawmakers, technocrats, intellectuals who are with value? Thabo Mbeki was invited to one of our revolutionary parties in Tanzania, Chama Mapinduzi Party, to talk to the Youth Congress. And he said his fear, he's very afraid for Africa. We have all the skills, all the knowledge, you know, all the tools, but what he does not see is values. So that if you don't have values, we can have all the PhDs, we have all the computers, we have, you know, super high internet, we have vehicles, but we cannot do for ourselves. And right now, that is the problem we have. So I think we have to target this generation. Our political parties have to reposition themselves to really begin to see themselves as tools of national liberation, of tools of development, of empowerment, and see how do we really transform our electorates, you know, and so on.
Yeah, what would values in the face of Congress? Like, we care about government and US.
Absolutely. Values has nothing to do with starvation. If you look at our forefathers in the 20s, 30s, when the Great Depression was happening around, they were extremely poor. But guess what? They were people of high moral standing, and they are people with honor to the point they'll rather die than succumb to the will of people. I think we have had a cultural shift. I think we're all talking about the political dynamics and national dynamics, but we are not looking at the cultural dynamics. And the cultural dynamics is what's holding everything. We need a cultural shift collectively as a people. And with that cultural shift, we can now have political shift and we can have a moral shift. But today, our society collectively, and this has nothing to do with tribes, collectively, we have shifted to a point that we are our own problem. And why are we our own problem? MADI said something earlier, man, know thyself. We no longer know who we are as a people. We don't know where we want to go. And thirdly, the youngest amongst us, meaning generation-wise, I'm scared for that generation because they have been exposed to a cruel world. This cruel world is a world that has brought information to their fingertips. But information is not good all the time because the type of information young Gambians are accessing today is information that's not helping them. What are they doing with it? Spinning cars. What are they doing with it? Bringing a pop culture idea that is very foreign to us and that is slowly degrading our cultural norms and values. So I think culture is the bedrock of creating a new Gambian. And without a new Gambian, everything and anything we want to do will be futile because it's not based on anything that will yield productivity for us.
Mr. NJIE, earlier reference David Rice enter Gambia, and you note in this book he argued, he referenced the New Gambia. You used to have this title before, New Gambia, before even 2016. It has now died out and it was surfaced in 2016. Now, the media, which you normally appear most of the time, do advocate, where you do advocate for a lot of things, in our opinion, contributes to shifting the political culture. How do you understand the role of the media? We used, for example, have the New Gambia, which performs that role of enlightenment of informing citizens. How will you get the role of the media in shifting the political culture of the Gambia?
I think that's a very direct question. You see, political culture is the belief, the values, the attitude that people develop in a particular political system. And before political culture, there is what we call political socialization. That is the process of developing those values, those attitudes, those beliefs in a political system. Meaning political socialization is a process to attain political culture. And if you look at, in political behavior, what we call the agents of political socialization, it starts from the homes. The family is an agent of political socialization. Political parties are agents of political socialization. Media, agents of political socialization. And even the schools are agents of political socialization because this is where people are giving information. And when we say information, we're referring to education. I agree that we need to differentiate between people being schooled and people being educated, but also we need to understand that there are people that are miseducated and they need to be re-educated. And that is the dilemma that we find ourselves in the Gambia right now. So the notion of political culture or the role of the media in developing or enhancing political culture is synonymous with the role of the media in enhancing or strengthening democracy. That is the context I will look at it in the modern era, contemporary Gambia. That we know when the Cold War ended, that is history. When the Cold War ended the Berlin Wall collapsed in 1989, the Soviet Union disintegrated in 1991, there was a wave called the third wave democratization in Africa. And this was when one-party systems were challenged. Ghana under Nkrumah, Guinea under Sekou Touré, Tanzania under Julius Nyerere, Zambia under Kenneth David Kaunda, Malawi under Hastings Kamuzu Banda, the Ivory Coast under Felix Houphouët-Boigny, the list goes on. We're all one-party states. But then it was a moment when there was need for us to liberalize the political space. And how do we do that? By allowing multiple political parties to exist. And civil society were instrumental in that, including church and mosque. And that is why I always question what our churches and mosques are doing in the Gambia when it comes to even national issues. Yes, when imams are talking about politics, people will say, no, don't go into politics. When bishops talk about politics, they say, no, you shouldn't go into politics. These are moral institutions. These are leaders, opinion makers, and people that can inform, that can guide groups of people, because politics is the business of everyone. So, but then not only civil society, of course, media was instrumental in that process of democratization, ensuring that the African at the time, or African countries that needed to democratize, were informed that that's the people. And at that point, you will even give kudos to the Gambia to say the Gambia was on the path of multi-party, has been a multi-party democracy, one of the longest since independence. It was only in 1994, as Professor Abdullah said, we took a U-turn in our politics. And what was that U-turn? But instead of welcoming these countries that were democratizing, we took a U-turn by having military rule. So what is the role of the media in this? By informing the people. And we have to be careful also, what information will these media houses pass to the people that will shape their political orientation or culture?
Yeah, but I'm particularly concerned with the caliber of people running this media or media, and let's talk about the hosts, the panelists, and so forth. If you have people who are evidently uninformed or less informed than the audience, there is a possibility of having misinformation or them being used for purposes they are not meant to serve.
Quite interesting, and I think I will start that generally. If you talk about the caliber of people running these media houses, we also question the caliber of leadership that we have in this country, the caliber of people that are teaching in our education system or school systems, the caliber of people that are running our civil society, the caliber of people that are manning our economy, of course, the caliber of people that are running our media houses. This all plays a lot. Because at the end of the day, people that are listening want information that can benefit them, information that can help them be the architect of their own destiny. That is what they're interested in. But if you have individuals who have very shallow parochial mindset about development, about still the notion of independence, because the media should be able to, at this point we are having this debate of the notion of independence. The media should contribute to that. And that starts with journalists. And I think it is good at this point, since we have in our midst the Jawara, I think he may want to chip in that area because he's been a media professional and he was also one time the information minister. I think he'll be able to help us in that direction.
Definitely. At this moment, we want to. Say something
I just want to say something. I'm not sure whether we are getting to that now. The notion of nationhood.
On the second part.
On the second part.
Then we come to that, and we only open the floor for.
All right, cool.
Including for honorable minister.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just to speak to this issue of the media, I think, first of all, we got to recognize the global cost of our media. Somebody made reference to the drama, yes, more. And so the media has been integral in our independence, but also in building and ensuring accountable governance, good governance. I mean, Dixie Cody way back, and then you come all the way down to folks like the Hydra. Yeah, so data, for example, but DA, I mean, in that area, and many others. So the media has been integral in the middle of the efforts to ensure, to protect our independence, if I say so, because where the media have to ensure accountability and transparency to make government, responsive, that is all in the effort to ensure to protect our independence. I think when we come down to this present moment, for me, I think our media has subsided, but at the same time doing great. It's a mixed thing because we have media institutions that are really making great efforts to bring about accountability. So whether it's Malagan newspaper or even the, the TV radio stations, Kedfatu, and so on, but also we must recognize how the media got decimated as a result of the dictatorship, such that one needs to look at the media landscape, the participants in that media, the media workers, in terms of demographics. That capacity is a major issue in our media, but also I think patronage, corporate interests have gone into our media. And that is concerning because that can hugely undermine democracy, good governance, the empowerment of the people. And so I don't know what Dia would say, but then when I look at the media, I have mixed feelings. In one sense, I see great efforts being done by a number of media houses and individual journalists. But at the same time, I see a lot of corporate interest going inside the media. I see a lot of patronage, and even the media serving as a mouthpiece to promote this toxic polarization that is in our society, which all needs to be a matter of concern to us.
Thank you everyone. Kindly call our I'll have a night back to the MC, and when we come back to the second part of the discussion, we will take the question and of course hear from the information. Annie?
Thank you, Tony. That was an interactive panel and educative. So we move on to the next item on the agenda. We invite in John Pickering for a point. Thank Point below is the point. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ajifatu Kuyate, and I'm a student from John Pickering Comprehensive Junior and Senior Secondary School. I have a poem to recite, and it is entitled The Gambia. This is how it goes. For the Gambian na banko, nañ boole nekk benn liggéeyu suñu réew mi. For the Gambian basu, nañ taka suñ digga bi yóbbu réew mi si kanam ci kaw a kaw. We are the land that still bears the mark of oppression. We are the people who lived and made it through depression, striving and working and praying not to an era of expression. But this country, all that's within our possession. We own our votes, we go to polls, we choose who for the post. We are the people and the power and the pride and the price of greatness. We each have contributed to making the Gambia Remi Taranga. We are a land of peace, a people of progress and a home of prosperity. For the Gambia is a promised land, a land that has no space usually for nepotism, tribalism, favorism. We are a nation because of every Gambian soul, the teachers and preachers, farmers and carpenters and painters, ministers and registers, nurses and mercenaries, the Kenyan man, the ferry collector, the boutique post, Nelinjais, Alcalo and Kanyalais. We are a smiling coast, not just we smile, but there is smile no matter what. We are the red, white, blue and green colors, the scorpion in the game, the homeland of the Linger and Jem, Kunta Kinte, Karaba Jawara, Solo Sanlin, Daida Haidara. We are a people of value and virtues, a country that will never again surrender to slavery. Alas, gone were the days when we were silenced by the guns and threatened with the locks. We are done crawling under the chains. We are done looking from behind the bars. Look at us. I mean, really, have you traveled our river and land and seen our diversity? Have you experienced our Christmas or celebrated our Tobaski or attended our Gamo? What about our Gentes and Takas? Manyo Bitoni Bamuto. We are unity in manifestation, humanity in action and love indeed. We are of homes that offer chaos with friends and foes, neighbors and strangers. We are of Kiyankas and Badibunkas, Joras and Seros, Jates and Dramas, Kuyatas and Ketas, Sanawiani Nyoyaya. We are the people who will serve our only chicken to our guests and spend our last dollars on attire for them. We know how to love. We know how to welcome and embrace. We are a beautiful people, modeled from the nights of Laban and Lupin. Dance and sing together as Muslim and Christian kids. Miniyamba tunga balambelo. Saba miniyamba kini kini ye dalilelo. Saba miniyamba tunga balambelo. Saba miniyamba iduke falule. Ominabo miniyamba ni wara tunkanana. Saba miniyamba saba ya konolelo. Saba miniyamba. As one people, taught to respect, expect to excel, nurture to survive structures of struggles. See, we are families of dignity and honor. Jam akungor, natapalapa, domada, churai gerte, akraha bisa. The little we have keep us smiling. Let Ariba divide us but not our hearts. For the Gambia is one bantaba for Gambians. So, this is my song for liberty. I pledge to put this country first. This is my song for liberty. I promise to serve this community first. This is my song for liberty, for the Gambia ever true. Nabanko Gambia, Fafau. Ah, Nabanko Yuruandi, Gambia, Nabanko Yuruanye. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And moving on to the next item in the agenda, it's an essay to be read by John Pickering, SSS, titled A Letter to Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. A Letter to Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. A round of applause, people.
Honorable guest speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. My name is Adama W. Ba, a student from John Pickering Comprehensive Senior Secondary School. I am here to deliver a message, a letter rather, in memory of Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, and it goes. Dear Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, today, 24th April 2022, 52 years of republicanism for Mother Gambia. I write to you with a sense of gratitude for the efforts, sacrifices, and nationalist strives you have made towards building a country that has risen from the ashes of slavery and slave trade, escaped brutal consequences of European exploitation and subjugation through the mischievous hands of inhuman, barbaric, and sinful colonialists. I recognize the patriotic armor you had worn in your efforts to build a country that was stricken by poverty and ignorance, mental drain, and oppression into a full-fledged independent and sovereign state. In the 1962 elections, after you had been duly elected as the Prime Minister of the Gambia, a position you were only able to handle after had fought constitutional amendment battles. You had installed a democracy recognized by all. You fought tooth and nail with a patriotic cap for the freedom of this country. On April 24th, 1970, after several efforts and calls you had made, this country, the Gambia, became a republic with its government. We gained our self-government led by our own people with a great sense of selflessness. You had been a symbol of tolerance, a peace-loving soul who had brought normalcy between Senegal and Guinea-Conakry. Not only were you a nationalist, but also a visionary leader who had always loved, cherished, and admired the Gambia and Gambians, fought for our rights, and helped us stand from nothing to something. You had been a peaceful legend. It saddens my heart, shatters my hopes, and malnourished my growth, for I am shameful. I am shameful that I could not be a soldier to your legacy. Today, as you rest in peace, the country bleeds. Not the country bleeds. Hundreds of people have been murdered in cold blood by selfish leaders who had always stood to suppress the masses for their selfish gains. Our patriots are gone. Dada Haidara, Usman Koro CEESAY, Solo Sanding, and many more pillars of your kind have fallen prey to the brutal hands of dictators. The land described as the smiling coast of Africa is now the whipping coast. After 20 years of nationhood since your regime, corruption, embezzlement, tribal politics, indecency, selflessness, and cluelessness have beclouded, blurred, and erased our hopes for a better country. Our hardworking women have fallen to the traps of maternal mortality, and our roads have developed into a cemetery where the youthful generation languishes in the heartless hands of death. Accidents have become the order of the day. You have left a country where the water supply turns to a mining zone. Electricity becomes a site for the heaven, and unemployment becomes a national pride. Agriculture, what we call the backbone of our country, is now an occupation for the hopeless, frustrated, and disregarded citizens sacrificed by our politicians. Wake up, Sadauda Karaba Jawara. Save us from this state of frustration. Our monthly earning can no longer feed us for a week. Our education system does not provide us any solutions. Our National Assembly members are glued to their political parties. Our leaders no longer care. They no longer care for the creation of a better Gambia. Our freedom is stolen and given to the Western world with a democracy that continues to strike us into poverty, ignorance, underdevelopment, and premature deaths. Dear Sadauda Karabai Jawara, we strive, work, and pray that one day we will live to witness a better Gambia built with a firm allegiance to nationalism. We remain hopeful and committed to building this country that you had fought for so hard. We the youthful generation, thank you for your sacrifices and pray that one day you will live to see us sailing this country to our dreamland. Till we meet again, in peace, rest in peace, Sadauda Karabai Jawara.
Incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, please, another round of applause for that incredible piece. She said, wake up, Sadauda Karabai Jawara, and I pray that his spirit and the spirit of our forefathers are awoken in each and every one of us to strive and do better for the country. Now, before we move on to the panel discussion part B, let us indulge an essay to be read by Nusrat Senior Secondary School titled A Letter to Queen Elizabeth. A Letter to Queen Elizabeth. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and good afternoon. The honorable panelists and the esteemed audience. I have a letter to read written for the Queen of England. But before I go further, I just want to get this off my chest. I have been really and truly educated today because I am a student, and then what is contained in my history books, that Great Britain gave us the independence because of their humanitarian spirit. But that thing has been laid bare today by one of the panelists. He said at some point, Britain had to let go. So thank you very much, Mr. NJIE, for the education. I'm deeply grateful. Here goes the letter. Dear Queen, I am a child of one of the countries that once made up the British Empire. I am a child of the Gambia, from the Gambia. 2 months ago, my dear country clocked 57 since the claimed attainment of independence. I use claimed because opinions differ among my people as to whether we've been truly independent. But first things first, that shall come later. History teaches us that our dear country got this claimed independence in February 18, 1965. History teaches us also that you headed this empire that the Gambia was a part of. And it's not lost on me that most of the roles you played were signatory. A case in point, it is understood that during the granting of independence, you were represented by the Duke of Kent, who presided over the ceremony. However, it should be noted that some reasons were given as to why the Gambia could not be allowed to take charge of our own affairs. Key and most important was the time was just not right for the Gambia. This is evidenced by the work of Berkeley Rice, The Birth of an Improbable Nation. Naturally, one would only expect such explanation from one who truly cares. Sadly, as revealed by history, the Gambia lost more than it gained from its membership of the empire. To atone for this injustice, I hereby advise that a sincere apology be offered to the Gambia for being robbed of its meager resources under the guise of civilization. And most importantly, the apology should be followed by the compensation of all that was wrongfully taken. Now, to the core of the matter. Has Gambia truly been independent? Well, if the happenings in the country are anything to go by, then I am submitting to us that the answer is not in the affirmative. To prove this point, let's focus on a few things. One of these things, and the most important, is education. Being a high school student, I need not be told that most of what we are forced to know has little or no relevance to our lives. If education is meant to transform, then why should anyone's time be wasted on learning something that only helps to convince one of why he is inferior and why he must accept that position without complaining? Whose interest is really being served here? Certainly not the school-going child. As the saying goes, to every action there is equal and opposite reaction, and this situation is no different. It is common knowledge that in our part of the world, it's about getting certificated that matters and not getting educated. As a result, discipline as a word has disappeared from our collective vocabulary. You surely won't need rocket science to substantiate this claim. You only need to take a quick visit to our state institutions. What does that have got to do with independence, you might ask? Well, one can only show what one is taught. Then it is about time we took full charge of drawing our syllabuses and not allow any form of dictation from anywhere. That's what independence is about. Only this way can we make sure what's relevant to our development as a people is taught and not the other way around. Another parameter that needs to be looked at to ascertain whether we've truly been independent is our foreign policy. It's common knowledge that for a relationship or for relationships to stand the test of time, they have to be mutual. Sadly, when one examines our relationship with other foreign nations, this feature of mutuality is nowhere to be seen. All that is clear is we are getting milked and we know very little about extracted milk. To give weight to this claim, one needs only examine our relationship with China. The coastal areas of the country give a glaring evidence of this situation. These places have been robbed of the very essence of life, clean water and air. As a result of these Chinese operations in our waters, the air has become polluted and water lifeless. However, it is worth noting that the ones who bear the brunt of this invasion of our meager resources are those who never had a say when these deals were being signed. Added to that, even those who signed the deal knew it wasn't a good one, but being truthful wouldn't have been diplomatic. They knew the truth doesn't sit well with the one who is bent on exploiting others, so they cold-shouldered the truth. Going forward, if we're really serious about progress, we must collectively acknowledge the fact that independence is not merely having a seat at the decision-making table, but also being truthful, even if that means cutting the very hands that feed you. God bless the Gambia.
A powerful letter indeed. One of our panelists made mention, or rather expressed their concern or fear of the young people of the Gambia, and I know you all agree with me that this, what we have just witnessed, is a glimpse of hope that we have a bright future. And now we're going to be moving on to the panel discussion part B, and I'll have to hand it over to the moderator, Tony Edmendi.
Thank you. This time around, I think I will be moving around. We will be giving the mic to you. Earlier, we talked about the role of the media, and I want us to also look at the economic situation. Jawara did say there is a nation that cannot feed itself is not independent. You cannot claim to be independent when you cannot feed yourself. Before allowing you to touch on that, Mr. NYANG first, I would like to
also, before I come to the media, I'm not very comfortable with it. Well, I mean, I really like supporting, gender issues. When we say gender is a neutral term. It's for both men and women. So, I mean, maybe you can call me a gender activist. Although in the Gambia, when we say gender activist, we are thinking about women who actually fight for the rights of women. But I think the men also can fight for the rights of women. In this country, there are certain terminologies, probably we have to look at them in our language. I mean, we've been hearing people here talking about our forefathers. What about our foremothers? Definitely, they contributed to whatever we are here. Yes. I mean, probably, I don't have an answer to that, because probably the educationists will help us as to when we say forefathers, what do we say again? Do we say foremothers? Another thing is that in this country, we hear people calling Rohilo mayores. I think that's a wrong terminology. Again, it's a wrong term people are using. I mean, there are thousands of women mayors all over the world, but it's only in the Gambia that the mayor is called mayoress. I mean, even in Freetown, their mayor is a lady, but they call her mayor. Mayor is a neutral term. It's not a woman or man or whatever. So mayoress is definitely wrong. That's all English. We have it in the dictionary. But if you look at it, I mean, the mayoress used to either be the wife of the mayor or a lady who was assist the mayor in the office. But in the Gambia, we refer to the full mayor as mayoress. In fact, I told her once, don't accept to be called mayoress. You are not a mayoress. You are a mayor like all other mayors. I think we'll have to look at our language. Sometimes it's not very gender friendly anyway. When it comes to the media, of course, Gambian journalists have done a lot, have done well under the circumstances that they've been operating in. For a very long time, we've never had journalism training schools in this country. So, I mean, people who are called journalists will just come from the classroom into the newsroom, and we call them journalists. In other countries, they actually have standards for journalists. Unfortunately, in this country, we have not had that yet. In Senegal, for instance, I mean, before you are called a journalist, you must reach a certain standard. You must either a certain educational standard or a certain, professional achievement before you are called a journalist. We have journalists, we have animateurs in Senegal. Not everyone who appears on television or or radio is called a journalist. We have what they call animateurs, who are definitely not journalists. People who can just maybe sit on a panel discussion or whatever, not necessarily that they are journalists, but they can just moderate. Well, in the Gambia, as I said, we never had that professional training. And, so standards are still quite low. And we also seen that during the time of the Yahya Jammeh era, it was not quite fashionable to be a journalist, particularly, so virtually everybody, all the radio stations and, others were concentrating on music and commercials because making hard news was very dangerous then. And, we had more DJs actually than journalists in this country then. And then suddenly in 2016, 2017, we had these changes. Then the airwaves were free. Everybody was free to, to say whatever they wanted. Then those DJs actually suddenly were transformed into journalists. So you can see that, most of those who are actually in the newsroom were not journalists per se. They didn't know what journalism meant. They had no idea about the ethics of journalism. So, all that actually retarded our journalism development. Again, most of the media owners in this country were many business people who were more interested in what they can make out of their media houses than actually keeping the ethics, journalism ethics. They were not journalists at all. They had no idea what journalism meant. All they were interested in was to make money. And that's the situation, up to this very time, even though, we have some journalism training schools now, and they are doing well. The situation is improving, but we are still, confronted with that kind of a situation that we had some time ago. So, but as I said, the Gambian journalists are doing very well under the circumstances that they find themselves in. And maybe it's just a matter of time before we also reach a certain level, as far as our media is concerned. But as I said, I'm really impressed with the panelists, and they have done great, actually. We all have learned quite a lot from, what has been going on and what have been said here. And again, just to touch on the independence bit, MADI and I have always been on the opposing side as far as when we achieved our independence. As far as I'm concerned, it was 18th of February, 1965. Of course, just as Dr. said, it's a process. We actually achieved it on the 18th of February, but the process maybe was completed on the 24th of April. But definitely, on the 18th of February, we had a cabinet which was composed, apart from one white face, that was the Attorney General then, Fritz Bridges. Everybody else was a Gambian in that cabinet. So we cannot say that we had our national anthem, we had our flag. So it was independence, maybe now you can define what independence means, but definitely we had our independence on the 18th. And I am on that school of thought. So I thank you very much for this very, very interesting forum, and I'm sure we'll be continuing this kind of forums. Thank you.
Thank you. Another applause to the former Honorable Minister. And is anyone intrigued by the process? Should we celebrate where it ended, or should we celebrate about to end? Because in 1965, still, the Queen was still the head of state and still holds power. For example, he can dissolve even the National Assembly. So where should we celebrate? At the end, when it was finally done, or should we celebrate when it's about to end? I will leave that almost done.
What was done finally?
What was done finally was that the power was transferred absolutely to the Gambians and taken away from the Queen. Nyangai, on the question of the economy, I repeat, Nyarare said no country can claim to be independent without being able to feed its people. How will you correlate independence and being economically viable state?
Thanks once again, and everything has to be put in context. 1965 snapshot, Gambia, 310,000 people, predominantly agrarian society, and a society that, produce agricultural goods, mostly cotton, groundnut for exports, then again, mostly to United Kingdom, and what was left was for subsistence, meaning farmers to feed themselves. Early 80s, or late 70s rather, because everything has to be in context once again. We had the energy crisis, the Arab-Israeli war, the Six-Day War that led to the 70s, then the energy crisis of the world, and in the early 80s, we saw the famine that hit and ravaged Ethiopia and others. And that should have been an alarm for the Gambia to focus on feeding itself. But no, what has happened between 1980 to date is we have outsourced the feeding of our population to outsiders, and outsiders predominantly in Southeast Asia and Senegal. And that in itself is a strategic national security issue. I'll bring it closer to home. The World Bank were having their spring meeting a few days ago, and there were some glaring statistics that came out of there looking at Gambia's trading partners. If you look at Gambia and Senegal, net inflow of trade to the Gambia from Senegal relative to net outflow of trade from the Gambia to Senegal has shifted significantly. In the 80s, Gambia was the breadbasket of Senegal. Be it food, textile, medicine, you name it, entertainment, this was the mecca they look up to. We have lost that. And what has made matters worse is, quote unquote, the Senegambia Bridge. Mind you, I'm a Pan-Africanist, but I like us to understand that the notion of first among equals is the premise of any relationship, first amongst equals. And right now, if you look at the Senegambia Bridge, it was co-financed with a grant from the ADB by Gambia and Senegal. But there are some terms there. The terms is now that bridge is open access to Senegal, even though they will pay. But in the past, Gambia can close its borders, and that became a negotiating tool for Gambia vis-a-vis Senegal. That is no longer the case. Senegal now has unfettered access south to north, north to south of a divided country.
That is the opinion of my SD. I know he not accept the that is about it. But I'll come to that later. First, one question to ask. The panelists, you raise your hand. And be direct, please, because we will close it soon. Want to say something? Yeah, you can use the mic here. So, this mic is for you. Want to ask a question? Just raise your hand. We'll do it for you. And be direct the question.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the notion of, like, when we say independence, it's political independence, economic independence. And looking at the situation in the Gambia right now, I think a lot of us will say, yes, we have attained political independence, but economic independence, even if you talk to my grandma in the village, will tell you that that one is not yet attained. Because as a country up to this day, we rely on external donors and so-called development partners. Well, I don't call them partners, I call them development exploiters instead of partners. For budget support, every now and then. And also, on top of that, there is this book called The Looting Machine, written by Cambodians, where he looks at how big financial conglomerates, tend to direct the way governance work in certain countries. When they come in, build their big businesses, and then directly they control, indirectly they control the leadership, the political leadership of that country. And that is how they're able to loot the resources of that country. Looking at our system currently, it's not only budget support, but even our reform programs that we are celebrating or boasting our of since 2017, it's all funded by external donors. That is why when the draft constitution was debated in Parliament, there will be big British embassy, I think the German embassy, and the US embassy, wrote a joint letter to say parliamentarians should give chance to the draft constitution. And all of a sudden, we had freedom fighters everywhere who said the Gambia is a sovereign, independent country. They should not interfere in our affairs. But I said, look, they always say you put your mouth where your money is. It should be a shame that we said we are an independent country. They should not interfere. When in reality, they are providing the money for that. That draft constitution being sponsored by these external donors. The security sector reform, external reform program, external donors. We talk about the JRRC. All these reform programs are being sponsored by them. Even salary increment that we are thinking of. With recent increased salaries, how do we sustain it? At the end of the day, we are thinking of the World Bank and other external donors to help us. So we must begin to interrogate that concept of economic independence because it is a fallacy up to this day.
Thank you, Mr. Jai. Now we have a question.
Thank you very much. This is what I gave up the national development plan of the past 5 years. And then it was pretty much and I 100% and then we were told by the Minister of Finance that they received between 10 to 30% of the requirements. Now they're talking about the new national development plan. What type of plan will you to help build up the development we move towards
Thank you. I think it's a very brilliant question. And what I have learned in school is that it's good to plan. And when you build a plan, it has to be executed. And in the process of execution, it needs what you call M&E, monitoring and evaluation. So the plan cycle has just elapsed. And one would have thought the government would have spent money measuring and evaluating the efficacy of the NDP plan, then the outcome or the results coming out of that M&E exercise will educate what type of a plan or subsequent plan will we have going forward. But a few weeks ago, I was surprised to see a group of eminent Gambians laying out a new plan. How can you have a new plan without measuring and knowing the pitfalls of the NDP and see how best to close those gaps? So is it just an exercise that we're doing just like the Vision 2020 before the NDP, or God knows? But I want to know myself. I'm as confused as you are in terms of the way government is doing it. But best practice and best global practice dictates that, yes, have a plan, roll out a plan, execute the plan, but do a monitoring and evaluation exercise to see where you have done well and where you have faltered, fix it, then that will be the basis or foundation of a new plan.
Mr. Jai, let me ask this one. Having a plan for 5 years for a state, is that really something realistic? Having a national development plan that with lifespan is only for 5 years, is that realistic?
Oh yes. It's not strange for countries to have piecemeal plans, sometimes doing a bigger plan. He mentioned Vision 2020, which was conceived in 2000, I think, 1999, 2000. But in it has piecemeal plans. I'm sure you will call PAGE, PRSP, and so on. You know, because development has to be planned, and planning has to be based on research, you know, on data, and which is why it's completely right to say at this point, if they should come up with a new plan, there should have been some research, some evaluation to look at what NDP 2018-2021 achieved or not achieved to inform the new plan. But in terms of having a plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, even a 15-year plan, even bigger, AU has a 50-year plan, the 2060 agenda. So, because those plans give you the ability to manage change, to manage progress, you know, given all the factors, economic, social, you know, technological, political, and so on. So it's good for a country, an institution, university, an organization to have plans, periodic plans which are reviewed as we go on. So that's right.
Thank you. Let's get our question.
Thank you very much for that brilliant presentation. There are all the lectures you have given there. Really a lot for it. I was eager to make a comment, but since we are running out of time, I would like to ask a question to all of you who have a better answer. Since we all identified the problems that this country is facing, ranging from political to economic and education. Now, I want to ask all of you, what would be your advice to the people present here and the university in general? What should be our responsibility when we leave this door? Because I believe the university has a role to play. University should be the focal point or the point of no turning back when it comes to political consciousness, which includes economic independence, self-reliance, and independence in everything, as far as we're concerned, both culture, race, and everything. I'm asking all of you, what is your advice to us who are here and the university in general? What should be our responsibility from today?
Maybe we'll go this way. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. I think the first thing that I would advise is to ensure you take charge of your own destiny and not be oblivious to your society. And try to know yourself, know your community, know your country, and know the world. The experience I've had sometimes with young people, especially in university setting, is very depressing. I teach introduction to politics. And I've seen university students who are fourth-year political science students, and I ask them, which constituency do you live in? They don't know. One of them told me that, I'm from West Coast, but my constituency is Latrikunda. Who is your National Assembly member? I don't know. The man or the woman we pay, you pay to go represent you, to be your voice, you don't even know that person. Who is the Minister of Youth and Sports? We don't know. The man and woman we pay for your development, you don't know. Who is the Minister of Higher Education? Well, we don't know. The man and woman we pay responsible for education, you don't know. Education is not about cramming books and passing exams and getting certificates. It's about knowing who you are, knowing where you come from, knowing your society, your community. I think my advice is, I think you need to start being active citizens and stop being passive citizens and stop just criticizing and see what can you do for your country. But you cannot do anything for your country if you don't know your country or if you don't know the problems of your country.
Thank you. So, Doctor said there are things there, reflecting on my own personal life. So, you know, as you know, me, I'm from Borava, the village of lights. You know, as people from poor backgrounds, we would normally be given to some Ghanaian. So I found myself in Banjul and in Bakau, and so here I am today. So as a very young boy, I just started to question, really, to question everything. So my advice to you young people is have critical mind. It is not that whatever MADI says is true, whatever DA says is true, even whatever the Imam says or the Bishop says is true, all right? So have critical mind. So I was asking myself questions, you know, if I talk to my parents, the elders, they talk about this great culture we have, this great society we are from, you know, this great Manding empire. But then some people came from us and ravaged it, enslaved our people, colonized us. So I'm like, if we are so great, why that is the case? What is the problem? If Gambia, we are said to be some great people and we are so poor, what is the problem? So questioning, I began to question the fundamental beliefs, pillars of my own society, my own culture. And that is the process of knowing myself and so on. And as that journey was going on, I remember going to, you know, library or any book I can gather, even an encyclopedia, just to read to know, you know. So even at that time, I knew the political, you know, dynamics in the country. As he said, who was the minister, who was that I need to know, trying to know myself. But as the journey went on, I came across movements like DOI. As a little boy, would sat down listening to Khalifa and Syria in their rallies. Ebony in Sarakunda, I don't know whether I still see it called Ebony. All right, you know Ebony. Who knows Ebony here? No, not DA, of course. You know the place they call Ebony at Sarakunda? No. Well, you know. So, and then they talked about the things they're talking about, and the idea of even April 24th, our independence. I get interested. I went to research. What are these people saying? And as I read on and on, I came across somebody called Franz Fanon, and he's talking about every generation has a Responsibility to discover your mission, to fulfill or to betray. So I ask myself, my generation, what is my responsibility? What is my mission? Am I going to fulfill that mission or betray that mission? You know? And so it continued and continued until we are here today. So I think, in short, that is it. Don't be zombies. Don't be buckets to be filled in with water, by Dr. ISMAILA CEESAY or NYANG here or, somebody else. No. Have a critical mind and begin to question. Have the courage to challenge, your elders. I mean, the ideas they bring, the ideas we hold, whether they are, political, economic, religious, social, cultural, question them. You are human beings. We are not donkeys.
Thank you, Mr. Jawara. Now we have Mr. Bush.
Oh, but the question didn't, the rest of them, okay.
My name is Ramon Bush. Sitting here, I can observe that we have three generations. We have the colonial generation, from the NJIE generation, and we have the generation good farm. So we all have the same problem. And the problem is Gambia. We worship as Muslims, we worship as Arabs, not as Africans. Christians worship as Europeans, not as Gambians. Economically, our people who are economists think like Europeans, analyze like Europeans, and behave like Europeans. Civil society sometimes fail their responsibilities and play political parts. Education, we teach our kids as Europeans, so that they can think like Europeans, act like Europeans. My question is, who are we?
That is the question. Maybe because of ask us, who are we?
And the mission to discover themselves.
Very interesting, but I think the answer is out there for all to see. I'll give you two names or three names: Basil Davidson, Ali Mosry, and John Henry Clark. You want to know who we are? We are a people with triple heritage, unfortunately. And this is what colonialism and religion has done to us. The African is an African first and foremost. The African has been trained to be Western in terms of education, and to a point, we have been indoctrinated into, Islam, Abrahamic religions. So who are we? We are a confused bunch. We are a bunch in search of an identity still. Look at our names: John, William, Mohammed, Usainu. You will hardly see an African with an authentic African name. And that is the beginning of the miseducation. Well, I have NYANG, I have a unique African name, but notwithstanding, we are still in search of an identity. And it's a crisis that has befallen the African.
Well, the question is too philosophical. I'm not sure. But like you said, the capability, if you read that book, you will get to know that we are the people. As the author will say, lost identity, we've taken from Europeans, we've taken from Arabs, and we've taken from Africa as well. But I think it is a very valid question, though thought-provoking, but it's something that we need to ask ourselves to find an answer. But in the advice, the first question regarding the advice we have, I think they've said it all, but just to add on, is to say that we need to be an active citizen. We need to, first and foremost, do a self-reflection. I always say this, even in the university, when we are on our WhatsApp platform, talking about problems in UTG and staff, and problems in Gambia, I always say we need to do a self-reflection. Let's reflect. Let's do a self-assessment of our own. What is our goal? Are we doing our responsibility as expected? Are we going to class to teach? Are we coming to work on time? Are we fulfilling the contract hours that we have with the students? Because it's very easy in this country for people to sit in their comfort zones and point fingers. The president is not doing that. The minister is not doing that. the director or the permanent secretary is not doing that. But what are they doing themselves? And you go to those people, you find out that they are the problems. They are worse than the president or the minister or the permanent secretary. So we are honest with ourselves, and we find it very difficult to tell each other the truth. You will sitting with me here, blaming President Dawa, blaming the minister. You know that I'm not doing my job. I'm not coming to class. But you're not facing me to say that ESSA, you're doing your job. But when I go, you'll be like, okay, just don't mind me. But so it starts from there, and it's also about being active rather than being passive. And the activeness is about asking critical questions. I mean, interrogating issues. Like I said, these days we're talking about rampant corruption in this country. There's one Kenyan professor who said that corrupt public officials are models. Models in the sense that the money that should go to the healthcare to save the life of that pregnant woman or that sick old man is being siphoned by few individuals as a result of the man died because there are no medications or equipment for the hospital. The money that should go into infrastructure to build us proper roads so that our roads are safe enough for people to drive will be taken away by few individuals. There are accidents on our roads and people die, and they say, you know, they or whatever. It's because few public officials have taken that money instead of building proper roads to invest $10 in this, invest on the $3. As a result, people die because of those. So, meaning corrupt public officials are equal models, and we need to put them to account. But then, finally, to say that being active, we'll be asking questions. If you go on social media today, or WhatsApp pages, what are you putting out there for people to learn, for people to see? Many times you go check WhatsApp pages of young people in this country. It's all pictures every day, million pictures. People will upload 1 million pictures on WhatsApp pages every day. It's about issues that do not concern the government. You want to say those are personal pictures, but then you don't ask critical questions. The station coming from the university, sometimes when I engage with some students in the class, I feel like we are dealing with wrong people. We need to be these people for them to be active citizens instead of passive.
Thank you, Mr. Jai.
My name is Decay. I'm majoring in Supersonics. So my question is specifically to Dr. CEESAY and Mr. NYANG. But we're talking about giving back to your community, like Dr. CEESAY said, we had this information called back to give back to the student. But so like as an individual, I realized that sitting down and listening to people lecture, it's inspirational, yes. But actually, when you personally go to the classroom, maybe you have some inspiration to go into something or to do something. But you don't have people to engage with, and it's very difficult to have connection with the people that can actually help you. So my question is exactly what if any activities are you engaged in to actually engage the youth of, especially people who are studying political science? What are you doing to engage them when actually able to, reach maybe at least a level of where you
to mentor you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to go first?
No.
Well, thank you. I think it's now we should celebrate, and I agree with Honorable Jawara that the panel is not a balanced panel. For the first time, a woman is participating in this event. The previous women who spoke are part of the organizers, so we should celebrate that now a woman is finally gotten up to participate by asking a question. I think her question has to do with mentorship. What we can do to ensure that we mentor younger people and inspire them to become good citizens and to become good not only for their country but also for their community. What we are doing right now as we speak, nothing. I'm not aware of anything, especially at the level of the university. I think that's a center that's a student center, career development, something like that. But I think it's something that as a student at UTG, you can start something. You can start a kind of a focus group where you can engage people like us, people like Mr. NJIE, NJIE is here, MADI JOBARTEH, And then we can have weekly or monthly events where we can meet with some students and then we can engage. But that engagement now is not existing anymore. It used to exist before. I remember when I was teaching back at the university years back, we used to have events every Wednesday. I used to organize what they call the STAR seminar series, where we'll meet, we'll bring someone like an eminent person like Mr. NYANG to give a speech and inspire us, and you'll get the chance to interact with him and ask questions. But that has stopped. But I think it's good you can start that one now, and we can start a focus group where we can meet once a week or once a month, and then we can see how we can have a mentorship program. But also, I think I remember ESSA, there was one time we also registered Young Citizens for Development. I initiated that 1 year back at UTG as well, because my idea was that the whole idea of corporate social responsibility, that businesses have a responsibility towards their society by contributing. And also that academics, students have a responsibility to their communities. If your education that you gain from UTG is not changing lives in the village you come from or the town or your constituency, then something is wrong with education. So I established what they call Young Citizens for Development. We registered it. We met once a week. We organized events like these forums. Part of this was to inspire young people, mentor them, but also make sure that their education they're getting from UTG is filtering back to their communities and helping them. You can help revive that. We can talk later after this event, and we can see how we can work together to revive such forums.
Thank you, Dr. CEESAY.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. My name is Momo. We are very happy to be here because we give thanks to the organizers and also the panelists over there. And each and every one of you find a common question. But what I want to understand, what I would like you to make you understand here, what are we doing from here? What do we do? Because we are talking about independence. What show is about independence? Okay, it is Gambia's independence is unique of its time. Because we are told politically we were independent in 1965. But again, gaining our sovereignty was 1970. Which one do we have across Africa during the time of independence? Which country was given at us? And what do we do from there? What is the way forward to educate the upcoming generation that actually Gambia of independence is 65 and not 70? Sovereign and independent, we need that institution. Otherwise, we will be laboring for this country over and we will time is moving.
I think it's very well asked the Professor here. Canadian independence is the absence of sovereignty.
Well, I mean, the whole idea of being independent is by being sovereign, is to decide for yourself. So, I mean, if you are not sovereign, then the question of being independent becomes problematic.
And we were independent we were sovereign in 1970.
No, don't. Yeah, okay, man.
Well, okay. I know this probably we will never solve this until I become a member of National Assembly, where I will place a bill for Gambia Independence Bill to change the date. Because we are too much in love with it. 18 February. We've been socialized, as I talked about political socialization. It's in our DNA. So it's difficult to, people cannot imagine now the abandoned, February 18. But really, personally, when I speak about this, I'm speaking about it in terms of the facts and the law. All right? If you look at the law in 1965, say the 1965 Constitution, it establishes us as a dominion within the British Empire, which means we have a very high level of self-rule. The process, as I talked about, for me, I think that's an argument, or I think, that's talked about. You see, we can even go to 1947, with A.F. Small, when he was made elected representative in the Banjul Legislative Council. We can refer to 1962, when Jawara won the election, 1963, when, P.S. NJIE became chief minister or something. There are stages, and as Nyang said, the war in Europe created a situation where we had to be let go, but the British were managing it in a way that at the same time they will continue to have control. So the process, we can go as far back when it started. But the point is, and that is not just the Gambia alone. If Americans claim that they have independence in 1776, July 4th, it doesn't mean everything just broke up that day. No. There were a lot of things that happened before July 4th, 1776, but July 4th, 1776 is the day. So in our case, a lot of things happened many days we can refer to, but the day we gained that independence is April 24, 1970. Jawara said it. I mean, I don't think you can put everything aside and just go to Jawara, because he was the man at the top. And he said it in his autobiography, Kairaba. Did you read it? When he entered that office as prime minister, thinking now I'm the man, only to realize for every little thing he has to be consulted to consult the governor general. He has to consult London. And he's like, what the hell? I mean, so actually power is only way in London. So this is the point. So I know we love February 18th. I was a kid at Mohammedan Primary School, and independence used to be nice in our days. Sandals, white socks, and all of that ceremony, marching at Makati Square in front of Jawara with the white scarf waving us. Beautiful. But look, this is our history, our experience. We'll have to take the bitter pill to realize, okay, we are moving. So rest assured, if I become National Assembly member, if I become president, I'll push a bill in the National Assembly to change the date, even if it is year 2050. We'll change it, don't worry. DA, I'm sorry.
There is a disconnection between the young people and the government. It's like the government and the government. The young people simply don't understand the institutions or the government. We don't only need to be the constitution, but we also need the institutions that work or that guys, or those that are public institutions. But again, this kind of doctor, we don't only need to let experience what the government should do. But I feel like academia is also play an important role in the form of publicity. Yes, people don't really want public use of that is something like guidance and so on. For example, I used to have a fellow in President. It's easier for me to research on legal issues of Nigeria or the US in Gambia than Gambia promotes or legal issues in Gambia. So the including academia, the University of Gambia need to also change its approach. Don't only for the students to go and learn about their research. Write and publish and bring it into the that's one. Two, coming for MADI, who is of course you see that, for example, medical civil society is following tracking and so on, how they come into Parliament, whether they are taking part in debates and so on. That's informing because of the electorate. What we say in the Gambia here is we have seen young people, so many interested in contesting, yet some of them don't even understand the basic function of Parliament. Some don't even follow parliamentary procedures, for example. But don't really civil society can also close this stage. Can sort of like serve as the watchdog simply, and informing the citizens, adequately informing them, and also make the citizens understand the power of recall of national assembly members. Then you will realize that young people will be adequately informed and also involved in life.
First, Dr. Again, Sajibati.
Let Mr. Jawara go first.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Well, that is basically what Supersonics should do, to serve as a watchdog, holding government accountable, not just government, but all sectors of society, whether private sector, individuals, just to make sure human rights are protected, that in terms of business, that people are getting value for money for these goods and services they buy, that public services, when they're delivered, they're efficient, affordable, accessible, and so on. So that's the role of civil society. But part of that also includes, therefore, raising awareness, because, when people are not aware about their rights, about the obligations of the duty bearers, it will be difficult to hold the duty bearer to account. So people need to know what are your rights, what are your duties, and the duty bearers. They could be the state, it could be the private sector, it could be anyone in a position of responsibility, delivering a service, and so on, to know what are their obligations, what's their terms of reference. Because if you don't know my terms of reference, you cannot hold me to account. So I think that is being done. Not satisfactory, really. If you come to the area of civic education, for example, you know, there's not more that could be done. So I completely agree with you. In some countries like Ghana, even Senegal, Nigeria, civil society is not more vibrant, not more forceful, and they just don't raise awareness, but also they perform stronger watchdog measures, you know, like they go to court. All right. In the Gambia, it's just recently we saw civil society taking government to court, apart from GPU, which has been doing this under DS leadership a long time, you know, but also to protest, you know, which is a legal, democratic, non-violent, peaceful action that civil society mobilized citizens to go and manifest in the public space in order to put pressure on politicians and so on to change decisions and so on. So all of these are done in the Gambia, but at a very limited scale, and it all comes down to really, even within the civil society, how much do they understand the role of the civil society?
Yeah.
And which is very limited. And yeah, but I think that's why we are.
I think his question touches on the role of academia, in particular the university. Well, universities academia play multiple and sometimes overlapping roles. One of the key roles we do, apart from enlightening, teaching, is we embark on academic research. But research is expensive, and those who pay for it they know what they want. There's a lot of research published in Gambia on Gambian politics. It's out there, it's everywhere. But one of the pitfalls of this generation is our fixation with social media. We don't read anymore. The amount of time we spend on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp status, every year, on average, per young person, it's a lot. If we spend that time on reading and doing research and self-learning, we'll make progress. But also one thing that is absent, and someone mentioned our planning, and MADI talked about how now we have to shift to what they call evidence-based policy making. The government is not engaging the university. Today we have a problem, and Sanja mentioned it, accidents everywhere. The number of people dying on road traffic accidents is a lot. What are we doing to solve it? Nothing. Any other government would have engaged the university and commissioned research to find out what's happening. There's empirical evidence to suggest that accidents have not only increased, but have become deadlier. Today, there should be a team now doing research to find out why is it that today a lot of people are dying through road traffic accidents. By now, we should have had a report and recommendations saying that, well, government, one of the reasons is because of one, drink driving has increased in number. 2, fatigue. 3, the roads are not good. Cars are not roadworthy. And so on and so forth. And these are the recommendations. Oh, overspeeding. Then government will come with policy. Speed cameras everywhere. Equipping the police and training them to detect and also reprimand those who drink drive. Putting measures in place so that drivers that do long journeys can have logbooks where they can have to record and tell the police when was the last time they rested. Expanding the roads. These are policies we do. And then coming back to what he said, evaluation. After 5 years, we evaluate. These policies, did they lead to a reduction of accidents or has they increased or stagnant? This is how government works. But university, basically, what we do at UTG is to teach, teach, and teach. There's a deficit here in terms of knowledge production. We consume more knowledge at our level here at UTG than we produce, and that is a problem.
Thank you very much. My question regards to ESSA. You mentioned the issue of 669 billion being taken by the government now, and we all know the best. So I believe it all boils down to the individual grant. Like the spirit of nationalism is not there. We don't claim ownership of this money. What are the factors that you think are responsible for that?
For people taking ownership?
Yeah, people not taking ownership.
One, I think it has to do with awareness, level of consciousness. Many people are conscious of the fact that government is just a group of people that are put in place to be responsible in the management of the resources of a country to provide food and justice to the intelligence of people. And this is what we call good governance. So it has to be people being conscious of the fact that this is a hard country. It doesn't belong to anybody else. You have an example of people looking at the president, going to the president for getting the president to provide development for them. I mean, development is a right. Even international human rights instruments, telling that development is a right. In international covenant, development is a right. So if the president builds a road in a particular community and then it start placing or tranquility, as if it is doing a favor for you, it's not a favor, it's a right. The president, before becoming president, was going to be affected by stuff. But after becoming president, he seems to know the price of commodities in the market. It was clear for that. It's just like if I give you my money today and say money is every morning you give me breakfast, afternoon lunch, night dinner. And then on top of that I'm paying. When you give me my breakfast, then I can't do that. Because it's my money. So we take the president as one going to say, keep time. We give him and trust him with our resources and say, you and your cabal, I guess not your cabal, political class, but you and your cabal, you manage this money for this resource. So if you give us that, it's not like you're giving us our money. So people must be conscious of this fact, that it is their own money. So people don't know that this is 669 million, and the rest of the other millions and billions that are in this country and in this year belong to them. And at some point they feel like it's normal, even if we come nothing will come out of it. But these people are, how do you should be? If people don't come out, question these things, challenge these things, then they don't know the decision.
Can I add something there?
Yeah, we don't just from observation. How does that relate to our transition from our previous governance structure, pre-colonial governance structure, to what we currently have? So we used to have monsters, we used to have blues, we used to have colors, whom we are used to praising, and so forth. Don't you think that's a transition that we are seeing right now in the country?
I'm not just 2 years, I won't show you the monsters about that. What I know is that for me, it's a psychophancy when people think that leaders should be praised, people start to see as servants instead of seeing as people that provide a spirit that give us spirit instead of. So we have rights, but it's all about self-consciousness. It's about people being aware of themselves, like you said. People must know themselves. People must know how this is complete. We talk about being in a classroom, asking students 7 basic questions about their country, and they didn't have an idea how to do it. The 669 million, I'm sure when you mentioned it, some people are surprised. I can tell you that. Some are mentioned us. They don't even know that this is not happening. So people must be aware that they don't see, you don't have to see this thing that nobody when I think of statements. Sometimes I will see message, even 2 days ago when I reached 669 million. Somebody messaged me say political talent. I couldn't have I was so mad, I didn't even have to respond to her because I know that is her level of understanding. So if you put up statements about politics in this country, check. If you don't always put up statements, nobody will understand you. Maybe 1 or 2 people. But one put up a very foolish thing on social media. Either your picture or a funny thing, something that is humorous, you will see tons of messages coming. Because that's what people enjoy. But you cannot have a developed society without people developing critical minds, so people question certain things. So it's really sad that this is the type of funding that we have, and it's indeed rampant among people. Yes.
I think this 669 has raised something that most ask. There is a difference in apathy across the board. But the 669 has raised a bigger question that needs an answer, and that's called civil service reform. In every department or ministry, you have what you call an accounting office, including the state house. And the accounting officer is not a politician, but a technocrat, a civil servant. So, how did we flout the rules, and why were the rules flouted? Well, the rules were flouted because the civil servant lacked security of tenure. The civil servant is not protected, and basically he is in office at the whims and caprices of the political master. So civil service reform is a big problem why the country's finances are how they are and where they are right now. So since Barack is in his new term, it is incumbent on all of us to have a 5-point agenda of institutional reforms that we want. And key among these institutional reforms is civil service.
Thank you. Mr. Jawara, the issue of praising the ESSA for God, do you think our previous governance structure, the master we have, the rules and so forth, don't you think there's a transfer of political culture?
Yeah, so I think NYANG talked about the triple heritage. And before that, as I talked about our leaders at the very beginning, did not prepare us. And so where we are right now, we are suffering from that crisis. All right? Because a lot of people are looking at the president, are looking at governance from the point of our socio-cultural traditions. You know, of course, a lot of others are looking at things from a very religious, you know, perspective. And a lot of others are looking at it from, you know, a modern Republican point of view. And so we have in this society all these traditions and these people. And then we have a leadership that is, whether consciously or not, or both, feeding on these three traditions that are flowing in our society so that they promote this master mentality and so on. As I mentioned, the issue of chief servant. 2016-17, when I began to refer to Adama Barrow as chief servant, I got personal and public messages insulting me that I'm very disrespectful. How can I call the president chief servant? Mida. Some people cannot just understand that. But I still maintain that the president is the chief Mida. Okay? Now, and it goes to what Esa just said and all what we've been saying, consciousness. Consciousness about sovereignty. What is sovereignty? I think Mr. Boyd asked the question, what are we? And it just clicked on my mind what Karl Marx said. Philosophers have described the world, now it is to change it. All right, and I think that is where we are. And I refer to, you know, when the United States was created in 1776, it took some 20 years before they even had a constitution. All right, and they had a huge conference in Philadelphia to create a constitution. At that time, imagine the US, a very big land area, 13 colonies, which started the United States. So people came from across these 13 colonies because they had there is a constitutional conference at Philadelphia to create a new country. So the delegates came. One delegate was coming out. I think he's one of the founding fathers and mothers. As they said, there's a change in language. Benjamin Franklin or someone, and an old lady outside the conference hall. Like you are sitting in this conference and somebody is outside, they are waiting what the leaders, delegates are going to come with, what kind of constitution. And the lady, old woman, asked this man, what kind of country are you giving us? And he responded, a republic if you can keep it. A republic if you can keep it. You know, underline that, if you can keep it. So what that means is, the republic is the property of the citizens. So here you hear people say, today is Republican Day, no, we became Republican. But do you know what is a republic? Really, do you know what is a republic? Because really, if you know what is a republic, we would not have been here. You would not be like this today. No, you would not. If you really know what is a republic. So this issue is a matter of political awareness. Until we get that level of political awareness, I tell you, these 669 million, who cares? The country is quiet. Who would imagine the kind of speaker we have today? Deputy speaker, who would imagine, the kind of corruption that is going on everywhere in this country? I mean, and the whole country sits down. Who would imagine 2020, they will kill our draft constitution, and the whole country is like we are having a picnic. If those people are really sovereign Republicans, if we were really sovereign Republicans, I have said in our civil service forum, I said, let us mobilize 100,000 Gambians and invade the National Assembly. That's what Republicans would do. But we sit here, people will give our power. The Constitution says the government derives legitimacy and authority from the people. We sit here, those trustees, those minans, flout us, disrespect us, insult us, and we sit here and somebody's telling him political talent. They should have been down in the National Assembly and tearing them into pieces. That's what Republicans do. So we are not Republicans. We are not sovereign in this country. We are, I don't know what kind of people we are. We are nothing. So, Mr. Bush, what are we? We are just no different from the donkeys and the sheep in the Gambia. We are the same.
My question is, this democracy before the West, that's the land of the West, is it valid, adopting our system, or whether can we go back to the monarchy system? Because the democracy that the president sees full time, come with these devils, take everything, somebody also come. How long will we escape?
Let me ask Sanja to remind me. I'm growing old now. I think one philosopher, former president, said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for those that have been tried from time to time. Who was that again? Winston Churchill, yes. So this whole thing about democracy imported from the West is a misconception. It wasn't imported from the West. In fact, the thinking is that democracy, ancient Greece is the cradle of modern democracy. It started in ancient Greece, in particular in Athens. That is why democracy, demoskratos, that is, the people rule themselves. It was a direct form of democracy. But also, I think there are also stories which tells us that if you read historiography, that in fact, the African governance system we had initially was based on democracy, but based on consensus and not competitive democracy. These are two things. That before, when there's an issue to decide on, our great-grandmothers and, no, I would say grandfathers, because in most cases, women were excluded. In fact, democracy also is time-bound and context. In Athens, at that time, they called it democracy, but women were not taking part in the process. Foreigners were not taking part in the process. They were excluded. In South Africa, when did black people start to take part in the democratic process? In 1994. In America, it was in the 60s. Yes, before that, they called it democracy. In the UK, it was in 1924 that women started to take part in democracy. Yes, they called it democracy. So the whole idea of democracy is that we had our democratic systems and governance systems in Africa based on consensus. Now, if you say this whole competitive democracy, our political parties compete for power, is an important concept, I agree. But is that really the problem? It has worked in other countries. They are governing themselves fine. They are developing. Is that the problem? Or is it how we are practicing it and applying that is the problem? We need to make a difference to that.
Yeah, so we have to govern ourselves. Every people, even every individual, you and me, I govern myself, you govern yourself. I have decided today I'll put on this. That's a governance issue, because it's a decision-making issue. That I have taken the decision, and that's politics, is the ability to take decisions. Now, we've been governing ourselves all over the world. Every society governs itself. Now, the question comes, what kind of governance system do you put in place? Now, we know we had monarchies, even in Europe. One family, one man, and now one woman is the king or the queen or the emperor running the whole society. On what basis? And we have seen, the good and bad of that. All right. Now, when we talk about democracy, I don't see it as a Western thing. Yes, the word democracy, we can break it down and say it's Greek. But for me, we need a a governance system, a political system in which decision making has to be in the hands of the people. And that decision making, in terms of, say, elections, are going to produce leaders, trustees to take control of institutions, which have to operate based on laws that we collectively agree to put in place to abide by, so that society is not run on the whims and caprices, on the imagination of one MADI over there. Certainly, I will oppose anything to create a Jawara kingdom in this country. I will oppose anything to create a CEESAY kingdom or a NJIE kingdom in this country, or a JOBARTEH kingdom. No way. So I would say we have to have a society, we have evolved, that today, in this hall, as we are right now, if we should govern ourselves, it should be a collective decision-making process.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. We have 10 minutes probably to end. So give you deliberations.
Good afternoon. My name is Al-Fasam, third year political student at the University of Gambia. We have seen the development of political parties to grow independent. And then we have seen that collectiveness towards the objective. We have also seen another development or proliferation of political parties after the Gambia reform. Rolling down to coalition 2016, when political parties come together to make the change that we desire, soon after the Assembly, we have seen that divide as short they disintegrated, and the bigger political parties failing away. So, do we say that because now from 1970 to now, we have not seen that collectiveness among the political parties towards our development agendas? Is there the problem lies? Because we have also seen the project that the coalition brought in all died. Let's say the draft constitution, let's say the transitional justice, the TRRC, all died down, which are instruments of our development agenda.
The question, area of political parties come together, is that a problem for development?
You see, there's a very big problem in this country. People must understand that coalitions are
based on marriage of convenience. Like what Honorable Salah will say, 2016 coalition bill, Pehela won. Because these are political parties that have one goal. And the goal is to assume political power, to take political power. But they have different sense of direction in how to do that. And also when they take over, how do they manage the affairs of the country? So that was why it was a surprise to a lot of people who said after 2016 election, 2017, the coalition will still be together. Let's contend National Assembly together. But then you have to understand that coalitions are bound to disintegrate because they don't believe in the same thing. The only goal they have is to secure political power. It's marriage of convenience. Once that convenience is not there, then you're done. So that was it. That was our experience. And then it seems like because 2016 coalition had succeeded, Gambians decided to take it as the only way to remove an incumbent. That's why 2021, when Barrow was announced as the winner, some political parties started challenging the results, and some people were out there saying, that is good for you, why didn't you come together? I was so pissed off, I said, I think I'm in the wrong society. Because we have developed a norm and a belief that the only way to remove an incumbent is through coalition formation. You see, we will keep on having problems because even when these people come together, at the end of the day, they will disintegrate. They will not remain together. They are political parties. What is the essence of a democracy when political parties come together? People saying that all political parties must come together. I've had someone who said his belief is that even after election, we can have ministers from different political parties to be in cabinet. Who will hold the government to account? Opposition political parties are like shadow governments. When you are in the football 18-man squad, you are on the bench, you are preparing that any moment you can be called. That is why when you are in opposition, you are helping the government to critique the actions and inactions of the government. So people must understand that coalitions are not the solution. Coalition formation is not necessarily the solution to our problems. If we believe in a particular political party and realize that this government in power is not doing the right thing, remove it. But we had a problem in this country in 2021, and we must say this. People look at political parties and say, no, we all know that the incumbent there is not competent, but we are not going to elect this political party. People said, no, it's not DOI. Some said, no, it's not UDP. No, it's not. But you believe that among all those options, they're all better than the man there. Are we honest to ourselves? And you think that, no, it's better that we have him there than to have others. If you think that Lawyer Dabo or Mama Kande are not the right people, Khalifa Saleh is an option, ESSA is an option, Lamin Jame is an option. All these people are options. You think that they're, in honest opinion, they are better than the man there. But it's because of emotions that we have to start realizing that, look, when a government fails to deliver its responsibility, we have a duty to remove that government from power. As Oboy will say, Mansameala Malado Koke. Ajindi? You said 10 minutes, but I think it should be 5 minutes now.
Okay. Now, for me, what I need to understand is corruption in this country, the issue is impunity. And because of this impunity, people are motivated or even empowered to embark on corrupt activities. There are a lot of, if you look at the history, we have seen a lot of corrupt activities that have been unfolding in media. But now, my question is, the National Assembly is the people represented. We are the people who should all be sitting at the National Assembly. The reason why we cannot all be there is because we select representatives. And now that all these audit reports that we're talking about has been discussed at the National Assembly, we just seen them now. So the question is, why now? Because this is a 2017 Auditor's General report, which was discussed at the National Assembly. So what does the National Assembly do to hold the government accountable? What steps are they taking to address this issue?
Can we just last
I think we need to assert our independence and say that should be it. It's scorchingly hot in here and it's becoming unbearable.
I think Tony. Yeah, I understand Mr. Jai's concern, but I think let's take two last sets of questions and we can round.
Yeah, we have 4 minutes. 4 minutes. So this question was
National Assembly.
Why are we seeing the auditor reports now?
I mean, MADI can help us today. The sixth one is the Auditor General report. It was since 2017. What is the role of Parliament?
So I think it all comes back to all of what we are saying. Now, I don't know whether all of you understand the National Audit Office as a public institution. Because I've met people who've never heard of the name National Audit Office or the role of an auditor general as it is in the Constitution. And the National Audit Office, they even have a website, and you would find a lot of reports there. I remember some time ago, I shared their 2016 audit report of the Gambia government. And I mean, I was just going to commit suicide, really, what I saw there. So this report has been submitted to the National Assembly. And the National Assembly should take action on it.
But the Constitution also gives power to the Auditor General that if he finds anyone for any discrepancy or fraud, he can directly send the matter to the IGP to investigate. So it's with the National Assembly. Before this 2017 report, just a week or two before, they had released the COVID response audit, which was also a subject of discussion in the National Assembly in December. And I don't know whether folks actually took time to follow National Assembly proceedings, as Mamadou here highlighted. So all of these things are there, and just wait, 2018 report is coming out soon. It's even more scandalous, all right? But please visit the National Audit Office website. Be interested in what this office is doing, really, be interested. But it is with the National Assembly, and the National Assembly has all the powers to refer any issue there to the IGP to investigate, to summon any public official, all right, that is mentioned in that report responsible, and to take action. So it is there. But also, the National Audit Office will be isolated, in fact, may even become a casualty if you and I don't raise our voices and engage as citizens to support them. So I think let us help ourselves by getting interested in this matter.
Thank you to the panelists, and my apology to those of you who were not able to ask questions. It's Ramadan, and the Jawara and secretaries are here complaining. So we thank you for coming and for honoring this invitation. Dr. Sunasise, Comrade JOBARTEH, I will call him, NJIE, and Mr. Jai. And before I leave this thing and give back to the MC, I just want to say that on behalf of the Panel President Association, I am sorry, and I deeply meant it. When we selected the list of panelists, I think the SC brought up the issue, we spoke about it. And like the attitude of all patriarchal men, we just talk and act, we don't act on issues that seem to affect women. So I'm giving no excuse. And on behalf of you all, and on behalf of my mother and every Gambian woman out there, I'm sorry, and be rest assured that the next time we have such gathering or such study session, there will be women, of course, in fact, competent women to form part of your panelists. Thank you for your kind attention.
So ladies, do we accept his apology? Do we? Okay, so this brings us to the end of the panel discussion. As an association, Pan-African Students Association, we had a fair share of discussions, and by far this has been the most engaging one. So thank you. This is the last item on our agenda, and this will be an essay read by a student from St. Peter's Senior Secondary School.
And I'm here to read an essay entitled A Letter to Edward Francis Moore. Dear Edward Francis Moore.
Ladies and gentlemen, please. Hello. Hello.
I'm so sorry about this. Okay. So we're gonna take this up. We're gonna take your photo and we're gonna publish it on our website, right?
Yes.
You have soft copy? You soft copy?
I have a soft copy in my phone.
In your phone? Internet that one?
Huh?
For us to clarify one and for all, so that other members who have not spoken can take it from there.
Honorable member, I think what he is saying is you are part of the selection committee. Listen to your comments, and then you people who are members will come and now address their concerns. If you talk, others, if you leave it out, somebody else will pick it from there.
Speaker, I am a member from Wellington constituency, and I think I have right to speak my mind.
You still have the right. No, it was just a suggestion. You still, if you want to continue, you can please continue.
Yeah, of course, I wanted to continue. I just wanted to, buttress more on what they've said on the nomination of Honorable CEESAY as chairperson, just to throw out the sentiments coming from members. with regards to that. Some of my colleagues have said the composition of the committee, selecting a chairperson of the committee. In the 5th legislature, we have somebody who is the chairperson who has a security background. And I've had honorable member from Parliament said the last legislature, the Security and Defense Committee was not effectively functioning. So if you have somebody who has security background and security committee at the National Assembly was not functioning, what is stopping this National Assembly to select somebody who has no security background to lead that committee? As per his submission, I said. So I think it is wise for us. The member that they are identifying is already a member in that committee. The chairperson position is nothing for me. What is more important is you have qualified members in the committee to support the chairperson to do the job. That is more important. So for me, it's not about pointing finger to an individual to say he should not be a chairperson to that select committee or that standing committee. It's about the composition. Let's talk about the composition. Do we have the right people in that committee to do the job effectively? But not to point finger to an individual to say he is not supposed to be the chairperson. Honorable Speaker, this is what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member, for all you know. We now have the Honorable Member for Upper Fuladu West.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also highlight some of the issues that have already been discussed. Well, for me, I just want to make a little contribution concerning about this whole issue. I think first of all, I have to thank the selection committee for selecting people into various positions, because this is not an easy job, because whereby all the National Assembly members have to tender their CVs before anything is done. So what I just want to say is I just want to make a personal appeal to National Assembly members that let's see our country, that is the Gambia. We should see Gambia. The moment when we enter in this building, what we're supposed to see is Gambia. We should not see our party. We should not see our consequences. What we should see is the Gambia. What is most important, that is the composition for me. Though I already tender my CV, though I'm a health professional, by profession, I'm a health worker by professional, and also on education, on sports, on media, different aspects. But I cannot be in all this committee. So what is important, if you find yourself in one or two committees, what is important, you should just work as a team. I think here the most important thing is the composition. Being the chairman does not mean that whatever you say should stand. Sometimes a chairman can be in a committee. The members are more effective than the chairman. So I want members to understand, because we have been just going around the same perimeter since in the morning up to now. You know, it seems the assembly is in a limbo, and we should not be in a limbo. This is just the beginning of the journey. So I am urging members, let's respect the selection committee, the decision made by the selection committee. You know, we can just, come up with our opinions, but this is a responsibility assigned to them. So, but if you want to see other way around, so we'll make life difficult for us. So thank you. This is my contribution.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Upper Fuladu West. We now have the Honorable Member for NYANG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the chance. Most of the things that I wanted to say have been highlighted by my colleagues, but I just still have a few things that I want to dwell on, especially in the aspect of security. Now, when you look at security, in most cases in our arguments, we center everything on background and experience. It is very important to have the background of a particular issue. But regarding the experience, once we have a member of that committee who have the experience, will able to help the chairperson, whether he has the experience or not, in carrying out that function. And you can only realize a weakness of that particular committee if they are not working together. And regarding defense and security is one of the most important things, especially in the rural Gambia. Sometimes when we talk about defense and security or high crime rates, we send out everything in the combos here, or we send out everything in the urban areas here. But the rural Gambia, they are also suffering, especially the constituency where I come from. There is a particular area where you know that almost every academic year, there are some people who will launch an attack to that particular village, and still now it's happening. You go to NYANG